Hello everybody. In this screencast we're going to look at how to solve this assignment, the in-class assignment number 1, which is an introduction to Java. So basically we will divide this video into two parts, and this is going to be part 1. We'll solve questions 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and in part 2 we're going to solve the remaining questions. So let's first set up. You are provided also with some files that we're going to include. And in addition to all of that, you are also provided with an instruction set. So basically, it tells you to install the community edition of IntelliJ. Right? So I already installed it, and I am using the version 2022.3.1. Right? So anyhow, so I create a new project, and it didn't ask me where do you want to put this project. I'll add it here. I'll call it, for example, in class 01, and it's gonna land in the desktop, right? And make sure it's Java, IntelliJ, and then in some cases you might not have the JDK. You just download it and it's gonna work, right? So basically, add sample code if you want to do that. That's fine, and then you create. So basically, you could see what does it create. Or here we are. So it did create some things. I don't need these, so I'm gonna close this. And then you see here there is a sources folder that got created, and it has a class called main, and then under main you could see that it has just hello world. So you can play this by clicking the play button. You click on run, and then you could see that it should print out hello world. So you have the project set up already. In addition to that, you are provided with some files. So create a new command line application. I didn't have to do that, it's already done for me here. Drag and drop any Java files that are provided. So let's get the Java files that were provided. I think I added these Java files somewhere here. So here is the Java files that were provided. There was a zip file that was provided, and here are the two Java files. So I'll drag both of them and see how we can make this happen. So let's drag the data file first. I'll drag it, and I will drop it in the source folder and refactor, and it's gonna move. Right. The problem is that there is already a main class, and I am going to drag another main one. It's going to overwrite it. So let's see what happens when I do that. So I'll drag and then I'll drop and refactor, overwrite, and here we are. We have a main file, and here's our main file. All right. So basically, I didn't do much here. This is the code that was there, that's provided. And there are questions. So each question has a method that you need to write and so on. So now let's do s out here. I just typed s out, click tab, and this is hello world, just so that we could have the same use case. I run this, and it seems that things are running. Here it is, hello world is working, right? Okay, so cool. So I already set up my project. I already have everything set up, and under the source folder I have the main class, and then there is a data class that we're going to use later, right? So let's have a look at the first question. The first question is a simple question, and it says that write a method that loops over the numbers from 1 to 20 and prints the numbers. Okay, cool. So and then there is fizz and buzz and so on. So let's do that first. So basically, here is the app. I just will print the numbers. So now how do I call this? I'll just call it fizz buzz. So here is fizz buzz, and it gets called. Basically, these are static methods. So basically, static methods are called using the class name. So main dot fizzbuzz. Here is how we call this method. You see, main dot fizzbuzz, and that's how it's being called. So now how do I need to loop from 1 to 20. So I will do for I, and I click tab, and it says I equal to what? I equal to 1, and I will loop all the way to 20. So I'll make it equal to 20. So basically this loops over 20, and s out, I'm just gonna print I so that I could show you that I am looping. So now when I run this, here it is, it's printing from 1 to 20. All right, cool. So I didn't write that much code. I used for I, right, which provides the iterator, and I starts at 1, ends at 20, right? Here it is, I'm printing the numbers, okay. For multiples of 3, print fizz instead of the number, and multiples of 5, print buzz. For numbers which are multiples of both 3 and 5, print fizzbuzz. Okay. So if it's a multiple of both of them, we'll just do fizzbuzz, right? Okay, good. So basically, in order to do that, so what I'll do is we'll start with the first case. If I, and to do the multiple, we'll just do this. This is the modulo, right? So I modulo 3 is equal to 0, and I modulo 5 is equal to 0, right? So basically, in that case, it's both, right? So that's both. So in this case, if it's both, right? It's both a multiple of both 3 and 5. Then we'll just say S out fizzbuzz. Okay, this is fizzbuzz, and that's basically what they're asking us to do. And then you have else if it's only I 3 is equal to 0, right? This is basically the modulo. Else if, right? So else if, then we'll do fizz, I think, and then else if with 5. So this is 5. We'll do buzz, and then else means that it's not a multiple, and then in that case we're just going to print the number. So here's this case, we're going to print the number. Otherwise, if it's multiple of 3, we're going to print fizz. Okay, so S out tab fizz, and then here same story here, S out and buzz. Okay, cool. So now let's just have a look at what we're doing here. We're looping, and then for each one of these numbers, we're checking to see if it's divisible by both 3 and 5. In that case, fizz buzz. If it's only divisible by 3, then it's going to be fizz. If it's only divisible by 5, it's going to do buzz. Otherwise, if it doesn't satisfy any of these conditions, we're just going to print the number. Is that what they are asking for here? Write a method that loops over the number, prints the numbers. But if the multiple of 3, just print fizz instead of the number. And multiples of 5 print buzz. For which numbers which are both 3 and 5, we do fizz buzz. Okay, cool. So just for our for the sake of testing, I will do I here. I will just add I to the number that I'm printing so that I could see the cases that are happening here. Right, so here is I, and similarly I, and here we go. So now when I run this, I'll remove hello world. I don't need it anymore, and I will run the project, and here we are. You see that if it's only divisible by 3, it shows fizz. Divisible by 5 shows buzz. 6 is divisible by 3, that's why it shows fizz. And if you scroll down, this one is fizz, this one is buzz because divisible by 5. When it's 15, it's divisible by both of them, and that's why it's showing fizz buzz. So I think so we could show that this is working, right? So I remove this and remove this, and you have your fizz buzz question done. Okay, cool. So that's question number 1. All right, very nice. So I have question number 1 done, right? So here it is. I'll comment it out. I don't need to run it now. Okay. So here is question number 1. Now let's go back to question number 2. Write a method that accepts an integer and returns true if the number is even and false otherwise. Good. So basically even or false. So basically what we could do is we could say you have a number, right? You're receiving an integer as the value, and basically all you have to do is return if the number is divisible by 2 is equal to 0, right? So basically if it's divisible by 2, then if the number is divisible by 2, then the modulo is going to be 0, and that's why we do equal to 0, and in that case it's divisible by 2. So here it is. So I could do some tests. S out, I'll do main, okay, main dot is even, and I'm just say, let's say is even, let's say 10 is even, right? That's 1. And then similarly I'll do an odd number, let's say 3, right? So now we run this and see. Okay, so you see here it's true when it's even and false when it's when it's not even. Cool. So we have that done, right? So here it is. That we can also comment that out just for the sake of testing if you want to test and so on, right? So here it is. So we are done with that case. So that's even. Okay, question number 2. Question number 3. Write a method that accepts an array of numbers and returns the minimum number of that array. Okay, and if the array is empty, then return null. Okay, good. So basically here is the method. So basically it will return null in this case, but what we could do is we can have a question. If numbers dot length is equal to 0, right? We could just return null, right? So that's one case, or we can also say if numbers is null, for example. If numbers is null, numbers is equal to null, or let's say numbers.length equal to. So basically in that case we can just return null, right? Otherwise we want to find what? We want to find the minimum number. Good. So basically these are integers. So basically the array of numbers, and in this case it seems it's an array of integers. Okay, good. So basically this is just an array of integers, and we're going to return the, so basically to start this we need to loop over numbers, and I don't need to have an index, and basically I'll just use the iterator. So I'll do for each, and for each integer in numbers, right? So basically in numbers. So basically here it is, and then what I could do is I need to start with the minimum. So basically I'll just create here minimum an integer minimum. Oh, it's returning integers. Okay, so integer, this is my minimum, equal to the integer dot minimum value. So basically I'm looking for a minimum, right? So basically I'll set it up and initialize it to be the maximum value, right? So basically we initialize it to be the maximum value, right? Or I can initialize it to be the first entry in the list of integers. I can do that also because I know it's greater than 0. So what I could do is I could do this. I could say it's numbers, it's the minimum one, is going to be start off with numbers, get me the 0th element. So basically it's just the first one in the list, right? And then basically here all what I will do is that I'll say if my number is less than the minimum, then the minimum is equal to the number, right? So basically here it is, yes. So basically if my number, right, the number, let's say call it I, the number I, let's avoid I because I is usually used for indices. So anyway, if the number is less than the minimum, then the minimum equal to the number, and then basically all what we return here is the minimum. Okay, so here we are. Very simple, very straightforward, and so on, right? So now to test this, what I will do is I'll do this. I want to have this method, which is a list of integers. Okay, cool. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out minimum, get minimum, s out. Let's have a list of numbers. So let's have an integer array, and I'll call it numbers. Okay, numbers equal, and I'll just have a list of integer array here, and let's say I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6, 7, and let's say we have minus 10, 20, and so on. So basically I just need the minimum, right? So basically all what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask get minimum. So I'll do get the main. Okay, here is main dot get minimum, and I'm going to pass the numbers. So basically if this is the case, then the minimum will be the minus 10, right? Okay, so now let's run it, and it says minus 10. So I did test the case where I'm getting back the minimum, right? Now we can also test cases where the array is empty. So now let's do this. I'll copy, let's say we have another one, okay, to test that case where empty nums, right? Nums, here it is, and it's an empty array. I'll just have an empty array, okay, and I can test this case out also. So basically I'll copy this from here, paste it here, and instead of passing it numbers, I'm going to pass empty numbers, and I'm going to run this again, and you can see it's returning null. So I am satisfying the other case where if it's null or if it's empty, then I'm returning null. Okay, so here it is. We're done with the minimum, right? Now question number 4, you are provided with a data class, okay, that contains an array, a user's array. Okay, good. So here it is. If you look at the data class, and you can see it just provides you with a list of users, right? So I'll copy this one of them, right? So this is the list of users, and each user is basically a string. So it asks you to create a user class, right, which has that should parse all the parameters for each user, hint extract each value for the user's record using the Java split function, and set the delimiter comma. So basically it's a comma delimited. So basically write a method that accepts the array of strings and returns an array list of users objects. Good. Okay, so basically we need to first create a user class. So I'll create a new Java class. I'll call it user. right? So here is my user class. And I know each user will look something like this. So basically the user has a first name. So we'll have public string, and this is the first name, if name. And then I have last name, L name. And then basically I have the age of the user. So basically that's going to be an integer. So public integer, and this is the age of the user, right? So basically I have the age of the user, and then I have an email for the user. So it's an email, which is a string email. And then I have gender of the user, and then basically the city and the state. Okay, cool. So this is the gender, city, and state. Good. So basically I have all this information, right? Now I need to set up a getter and setter. So I do code generate. You see here it says it's the command N in Apple. You could look and see. I think it's the control N in Windows. But anyhow, it will tell you what's the shortcut. So basically I can go here and say generate. What do I want to generate? Let's say I generate a constructor. I'll create an empty constructor to start off, and then also I'll generate a getter and setter for all the fields. Okay, here it is. So these are getters and setters for all the fields automatically generated by the system here. And I'll create another constructor, right? I'll call it public user, and this is gonna receive a string, and that's gonna call it the line, right? So basically this line is this, like for each user I'm just gonna receive a line, right? So this is a line, and basically I just want to split it. So basically this is a constructor that receives the line, and then I'm just gonna split it. So to split it is very easy. So you have if you look at line is a string, and then there is a split function, and it returns what? It returns an array. You see here it returns an array of strings. Okay, cool. So now I will return an array of strings, which is going to be string array items equal line dot split. And what is my delimiter is the comma, right? You see here it's comma separated. You know, this string is comma separated, and I want to split it by the commas, right? So I have the items. So I know that the name is the first item. So I could say this dot name, this of name, f name equals items of 0, right? So that's the first item, right? So here it is, right? So I have the name. I also have the last name, this dot last name, and that is the second one, right? So here it is. And then basically I also have, so I have the name, I have the first name, the last name, and this is the number, right? So basically in order to get the number, I know that the number is an integer. So basically I want to change the integer and change a string into an integer. So how do I do that? Here it is. So basically what we will do is this. We'll say this dot age equals integer dot value of, right? So value of, and you could see here, you could send it as string. Value of items of 2, right? So here it is. It's going to return an integer value of items of 2, okay? Now you also have to think about the case here where you we need to make sure this the value is a number, right? Is a valid number. We'll look at that in a little bit, not just for the sake of looking here. See, when you put a comment like this and you say to do, it appears here. You see the tab at the bottom. You can see here it shows you the to dos that you have to work on, right? Just for your record, yeah. But anyhow, so I have that. I have the age already set up. Now I have the email and all the other ones. All of these are going to be strings. So now we go back, copy one of these, and this is going to be the email, and this is going to be the third item is the email. And then similarly, I have, this is the email, and we'll go from there. So basically I have the email is the third item, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then I have the gender is this one. So this is 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this is going to be the gender. And then after the gender, we have the city. And then we have the state. And so we don't have 7 items. We have only 6 items. So here it is. We have the constructor setup. And everything looks good. We are able to do this. We just pass on the string, which is the line. And then from that line, we split it. And then we populate the fields accordingly. All right. Okay, we go back to the main method, and I'll cut this from here, and this is question number 4. So basically question number 4 is going to receive an array of strings, which is the array of strings, which is, why is it not happy? And then it returns an array list of user. Okay, good. So basically we'll go here, we receive an array of strings, right? And we'll do this for each string line in strings, right? And then basically what we're going to do, we'll say user equal, we'll use the constructor we just created, user, and pass it the line. Before I do that, I just want to show you what we're doing here, right? So I'm just not going to do this here. I'm just going to do sout line. I'm just going to print the line just to show you what we're doing here, right? And then let's say return null just for the sake of, so that this method stops complaining, right? So now I'm going to test this. So this is for the third question, test for the third question, right? And I'm just going to run get parsed users. So I'm going to do this here, main.get parsed users. And then it's asking for the parsed users. I'll use data.users. You see here, this is the list of users that I'm going to send it. When I run this, what I'm seeing is I'm getting this. You see, I'm getting the list of users, right? This is all the list of users that are being printed, which is whatever is here. You see, it is an array of users. You see, it's an array of strings, right? Okay, cool. So I'm getting these array of strings, right? And now what I would like to do is I'm going to parse them. So basically, I did loop. I don't want to print them. I just want to create a user. So okay, user equal new user. I'm going to pass it the line, and that gets me a user, right? And then basically, I would like to have an array list which holds them. So basically, let me create an array list. Here is an array list, and it's of type user, and these are my users, equal new array list. So this is the array list that is going to hold the users. Here I created the user. I'll say users dot add the user that I just created, right? And then basically at the end, I'm going to return users. Okay, cool. So that's basically what I'm doing here. This line creates an array list of users. I'm looping over the strings, and for each line, I am creating a new user using the constructor that we created, and then we return users. So now when we run this, it worked. There is no problems, right? So basically, you could see it work. Nothing happened, but we want to print these when this method is called, right? It returns an array list of users, right? So basically, I'll copy that. It returns, this method returns an array list of users. So I'll go here. Oops. Okay, so it returns an array list of users. I'm going to go here and say users equal to this. Now I would like to print it sout users, and I'm gonna run it. So let's run it, and it's just printing the IDs or the object IDs of the users. I want to print these users, the user information. So basically what I could do is I could go here in the user class and implement the toString method. So how do I do that? Command N or generate, and then I say I want to generate the toString, and you select what fields you want it to print, click OK, and it generates the toString for you. Now when you run it again, you will see that it will now print the users. You see here it's now printing these users for each one of them. Okay, so basically you could see that it's printing the first name. Here is the first name is what it does print the user object and the attributes of the user object. You see here gender, city, state, and you could see that the age is correct. Now let me show you something. What happens if the age is not a number? Let's say the first one, instead of it being a number, let's say it says high. Instead of 89, I just change it to high. When I run this, what happens? The app crashes. It says that there is an exception that happened. It's called the number format exception. So I'll keep that in mind. And for input high, you're trying to change high into an integer, and that's what's causing the problem. So if you go to the user class, you're trying to change, in the constructor here, we're trying to change high into a number. So in order to avoid this from happening, we'd say try. We'll try this. Catch. The exception is called number format exception. Here it is. I'm called exception. So this is the number format exception, and basically that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try it here, right? And if there is a problem, it got catch. If there is an exception, it get catched here, get caught here. And let's see, I'll do exception.print stack trace just to tell you that there's a problem. Sometimes we could just say, for example, in this case, if the age is not correct, we'll say age equal to say 20. Or maybe we make it say some default age or something. Let's say 29. All right, so let's run this and see. So basically we run it. See, the app didn't crash. It did not crash, right? It did go through, right? But it did print the stack trace. You see here, it did print the stack trace. And you can see that this first user, where the age was equal to high, now is showing it as 29. Makes sense? So basically, I could do this just to be on the safe side. to use try catch, because now this might not be a valid integer, and I don't need this to do anymore, and we're good. So basically, I have the user class setup, have the data class setup. Let's change this back to, I don't remember what it was. Let's see, it was 89. Here it is. Okay, good. So are we done with this? I think we're done. Accepts an array and returns an array list of users. We're done with this one. Now question number 5, write a method that accepts an array list of users. The method should print out the names of users that start with 0, M, and N. Okay, good. So basically that's what we're looking at. So basically I have the users. I would like to only print out the names of the users that start with 0, M, or N. Okay, good. So basically, where is this method here? We close this one. Here is question. Here it is, and here it is. Basically, it's going to receive a list of users. Good. And then from this list of users, you would like to only print out. So I'm going to do for each user from users, right? And basically, I would like to only print the ones that have these names. So basically, I would like if user.get name, the first name or last name here, it says that the user names start, let's say the first name, right? So basically get first name, right? And how do I do this? I would like to get the let's see, I would like the first character, right? So basically it starts with we can do the starts with, right? So basically we can do that, starts with, we can try that, or we can look at the Java documentation for string, Java docs string. Okay, here it is. We look here and you could look at, let's see, star string. These are all constructors. Scroll down a little bit, you will see starts with. Here it is, starts with prefix. Okay, it returns, it's a boolean, tests if the string starts with a specific prefix, if the sequence represented in the argument of the prefix, if it starts with it or no. Good. So we can try stuff like this. So basically we could say if the first name starts with, and you can provide, let's say, a string here, and we're looking at what? O, M, and O. So O, right? Here is O, M, and N. O, or if it starts with this or this or this. So basically we can do that. So here we are. Control C, Control V, or here it is. Then we're gonna print the name. Okay, so we'll say s out user dot get if name, just for the sake of testing here, right? Now this is O, M, and N, right? So we're gonna print it. We're just going to print it. So basically, only if it is starts with any of these, is gonna print it. Let's try and see, right? So now I can get the list of users by using this method, and then I will use the other method, main dot print this using users, right? The list of users that I have. So now we run this, and let's see if it's gonna work. All right, you could see that it's printing names of users. I don't need to print all the users in the world, so I'm gonna remove this one out. Run this again, and you can see that I'm printing the names of users that are M, N, and O, and so on, right? It's very straightforward, and we already solved part 5. So part 5 is just showing you how to find, or basically to locate users with specific properties, and we were able to do that. So it's like filtering and so on. All right, so please let me know if you have any questions.